Hi, I'm Tilly. I'm a dog behaviourist down in the southeast of England and I do home visits for problem behaviour. So, today I wanted to talk to you about digging as a problem behaviour. A lot of dogs I see dig, and most people aren't fussed about it at all. But there was one case where it was a really big problem because it was in the garden the majority of the day. Obviously, it's bored. That's no bones about it. It was a spaniel as well, but it had ended up digging all these plants up, plants that they'd just bought, and plants that had kind of value to them as well. So that their grandfather had recently died, and they'd planted this lovely plant, and the dog had literally just destroyed it. Not just digging, just actually destroying it with his teeth as well. So they'd called me in literally just for this problem. So because I did a lot of research to do with it as well, and I did a whole session on it, I thought I might as well do a little podcast on it if anybody else is having craters in their garden, or if your dog's digging up all your plants. There are actually quite a lot of things you can do. First of all, I wanted to talk about why dogs do dig. So most of the time it is just boredom. So digging is a very natural behaviour. Dogs are 99% wolf, and wolves will dig a lot. So they like digging like little dens. This can be if they're too hot because the ground is cooler. It can be if they're cold, getting out of the wind. If they dig down, the wind goes over the top. They dig for pups and things like that. They can dig to bury stuff as well. So there's lots of reasons why dogs dig. So this is why it comes from a natural place, so to speak. Our dogs dig for similar reasons, right? So if you've got a pregnant dog, it might start digging. If you've got a dog that's bred for hunting, a ratter, earth dog, that kind of thing, that's obviously going to be digging, trying to dig up moles. But once they start the process of digging, a lot of dogs do enjoy it, and they can teach each other. So you might find that your other dogs copy. I taught my dogs to dig simply because I quite like that it wears their nails down. I don't ever have to cut my dog's nails. They just wear down naturally from digging. So I taught them to dig themselves, and I don't mind it. When we go out on walks with other dogs, often they will start digging, and now the other dogs, my friend's dogs, also dig. Fortunately, she doesn't have a garden with earth. It's a patio. Otherwise, I don't think she'd be best pleased with me for doing that one. But that's the thing. It's a stress relieving thing. So dogs love digging. Now, to stop digging, to stop it properly, you really need to supervise the dog doing it so that you can basically tell your dog what you want. If your dog is left alone in the garden, there's a few things, I'm going to cover them in a minute for what to do, but ideally they wouldn't be. They wouldn't be left alone doing these things. It's exactly the same with chewing and toilet. It's a management technique. So the best option is if you don't want your dog digging in a certain bit, then you remove your dog from that part. So it either means not having them in the garden, or building a good pen, or fencing off a different section for them so they're not digging up your plants. Because if you see them doing it, then you can just clap your hands or say no and direct them somewhere else. That's your easiest bet, and you can do it with rewards and stuff like that as well, so that your dog's learning that no, digging isn't what they want me to do this. Getting lots of enrichment toys in the garden is a good way to go as well. So things like kongs are good. So you can fill them any kind of natural wet food. You can use 100% natural peanut butter. You can use natural yogurt. You can use dog meat. Anything you like, as long as your dog's not allergic to it, it can have it. And then with persistent dogs, you can start tying them off. Yeah, and especially for dogs that like tugging, like the bull breeds, hanging up things like kongs to trees and secure posts are going to be very beneficial for them, and start to teach them that there's other fun things to do in the garden apart from just digging. Now, you would probably never be able to, if you were out for several hours, you'd never be able to get enough toys going for the dog to use all the way through, right? They are a good start. I just want to add in there quickly, rope toys with studding them up with bits of raw carrot and bits of dog biscuit, anything dry. So you untwist the ropes. Any rope toy, the bigger the better, really. Any rope toy, you just untwist it against its grain, and you can dot things down. A lot of dogs love that as well. So there's a lot of different ways you can go. So you want to keep your dog entertained, exercising a lot before it's going to be left in this area as well. So it's the energy cup is empty, so to speak, is another good way. But let's get on to some real things that you can do. So you might have a situation where your dog is in the garden, it's not supervised, blah blah blah, doesn't matter, you just want some kind of foolproof ways to go. So getting something that your dog doesn't like digging in around where it was digging. So this can be a number of things. it can be something like a bad scent. So dogs, they don't like citrus. You can use ground coffee beans. You can use red cayenne pepper. These are kind of like your cheaper options. There's ones you can buy as well. There's pellets and sprays that actually they're safe. They're safe for the plants, obviously, and they're safe for the dogs too. But they deter your dog from digging because they don't like the smell. Another good way to do it is to actually put some of your dog's poo in where it was digging. It is very, very rare for a dog to want to dig anywhere near its pooed. So, as gross as it sounds, grabbing some of the poo and littering it where your dog is likely to dig will help to stop the deterrent. That's another good way to go. If you've just bought plants and you've been messing about and repotting them and things like that, it's two things, right? One, it's got your smell all over it and it's got all new smells on it, and that's very exciting for dogs and they want to investigate. Another thing is that the earth is really soft. Dogs love digging in soft ground and soft sand and things like that. So that's most likely if you've I've known dogs to dig them out of pots as well. The best way to do that is to get some sort of wire. So you can use, there's like a netting, so there's plastic netting, depends how much your dog digs. If your dog is a real big problem digger, I advise more like chicken wire. Yeah, something that actually is strong, it's not going to be torn apart. For me, this actually wasn't to do with the dogs, this was to do with my ferret. I have a ferret in the garden and he loves digging up stuff. So I had to meticulously go around all my pots, and it did take a long time, and I cut out proper ferret wire. It's very, very hard and it's very inflexible. I think it is called ferret wire. It looks like tiny 1 centimetre rectangles. Now that is foolproof. That's foolproof. I've used it for ferrets, dogs and deterring foxes as well. And all I do is I measure out the wire of the pot, so I cut like a circle, and then I cut a little hole in the middle, as small as I possibly can, just so I can get the plant through, and then I will plant the plant and push the wire over the top, and then I can just cover the wire with some more soil so it doesn't look all wiry around the garden. That's a good one. Another good one is having really big rocks, the size of your palm, quite big rocks. That was quite good. Even that alone was to help to deter the ferret, to be honest, but that would help to deter a lot of dogs, is filling in the holes with boulders. Dogs, they don't like pushing through this kind of thing, and you might find just normal gravel, when I say normal I mean probably half the size of your palm, that might be enough to deter it as well. But definitely the kind of the big rocks that more like boulders that are heavy, putting those, and they look quite nice as well, which is handy, but putting those across your plants are going to deter things as well. I would advise doing a number of these things. I would advise doing them all rather than just picking one or two. Some dogs like to dig to hide as well, so these dogs might benefit from an outside kennel, somewhere quite small and dark where they can go away and get away from the rest of the world, so they might be digging for that reason. But like I said before, most of it is just boredom, and they're finding all your new plants a lot more interesting to investigate. There is one school of thought. Some people they've tried burying balloons, okay? So if a dog they don't like loud noises, they've got a fear of thunder, etc., then people have had success in burying a balloon and then the dog pops it. I don't really like this idea. One, it's very heavy aversion. And remember, this is a natural thing for your dog to do, right? Digging is natural, but I feel it's a bit worrying if your dog accidentally eats the balloon. What's going to happen then? Yeah, so you do have to be aware of that. Balloons are definitely not safe. They're not safe for dogs to ingest. So I personally would steer away from that. There is one more thing which you should do anyway if you can, is to build the dog a dig pit. So depending on your size garden, you want the dig pit at least double the length of your dog. So if you've got a big dog, yeah, sure, you need a big pit, right? If you've got something like a terrier, you could probably get away with doing it just a metre or so across, like a metre square. But it needs to be, the bigger the better, and you want it at least a foot deep. Again, deeper is better. You can use sleepers, like big those big logs of wood, and then build it up. You want something safe. Soil is obviously a good one, but also play sand that you can get for the kids. So dogs love digging in sand. So this will encourage them to dig elsewhere. Now, to encourage them further to dig in this place, what you can do is you can bury treats and things like that. So a dog is more likely, if they've had a go at this dig pit and they've dug and they've found some treats, they're more likely to come back to this than go to the other plants because they've had success in this area. So what you would do is I would literally just start with scattering some treats over it at first. And then once your dog starts getting used to there's probably treats here, then he might start digging on his own. But it's worth just a bit like if you were planting seeds, right? So getting something like a dry biscuit, or you could use a more high value biscuit, but you don't really want anything wet because it's all going to get all dirty, etc. But you want to start burying it probably just a couple of inches down, just so the dog gets the idea there's stuff there. And then you can start going, getting more stuff. You can get bigger stuff, dig it right at the bottom, things like that. You might have to keep refilling it. Your dog's going to obviously enjoy doing this and keep piling it back in. But that's another good way to go. We want your dog doing more stuff rather than your plants. Whatever we take away with one hand, right? So we're taking away, the garden that's digging. We really ideally need to give in another. So we're giving by exercise, we're giving with enrichment toys, we're giving with a dig pit, this kind of thing. This is the best way of doing it. And again, not allowing your dog to be there unsupervised. Ideally, this is talking ideals really. But if you've got a big vast stretch of grass, so it's not just your dog is digging around the plants around the outside, sometimes they will just dig randomly at random points in the middle. This is where a dig pit comes into its own, because the dog is looking for something to do, and you can't wire a 100-foot garden. It's just not possible, and you wouldn't be able to spray pepper everywhere because the dog's just going to think, oh well, I'll just go to a meter to the right, or whatever, and then start digging again. So you've got to think outside the box, and this is why a dig pit can come in handy. You can also build a pen for your dog as well, like a big run, and to stop it digging out, what you do is you do wire around on the bottom, so about a foot to a meter on the inside on the ground. I used this when I had chickens to deter foxes, and it worked really well. So anyway, that concludes our digging session. So obviously there's lots of different things you can do. I would try as many as you possibly can. Supervising is always best, so the behaviour doesn't start in the first place. And yeah, so if you've got a problem with your dog digging, you now know a few ways to go about it. Best of luck with him, and I will see you next time. If you're interested in more videos or stuff that I do, I am on TikTok. I usually put my TikTok videos also on Facebook and Instagram, so just search Fawn Dog for those. And the main website is fawndog1to1dogtraining.co.uk. Thanks for listening, guys.